So when we look at that Bible verse from Proverbs, we say, well, I don't necessarily agree with that. And you know what? I totally understand. The reason why we talk about this Bible verse before we go into Family Matters is that when you go to the live retreat, when you start watching it, we start talking about some of the positive things that you experienced in your family of origin and some of the negative things. And what we want you both to realize in this time when you're watching it and when it's done for when you go to your couple time is that we want you to be thinking about what were some of the really negative things that I really disliked growing up? What were some of the things that I found to be hurtful or upsetting or things that I just necessarily didn't agree with? And then we also want you to look at the other side of the equation and look at what were some of the things that just made me super happy? Or what are some of the things that I just absolutely loved about my childhood and about my family? And then kind of weave into that and start thinking about what do we want to create for our family? Because here's the deal, no matter what your experience in your family, please realize that now that you are getting married, you and your fiance have the very unique opportunity to create a brand new family and a brand new nucleus. And it's a place where you can kind of get rid of those negative things that you once experienced, and you can focus on the positive things and the new things that you want to create for your specific family. And that can be a lot of fun. So right now we're going to go to the live retreat, and please be thinking again about what are some of those things that you want to be focusing on when you and your fiance create your family. As you guys are thinking about your future wedding day, if you think about your family is where you guys come from. It's kind of everything that has shaped you to where you are. It's where your values have come into play, what you think about, how you act, your behaviors, the rules that you guys have in place for not only yourself but for other people, your idea of what is right and what is wrong. All of those things have come to us most of the time from our families. And so the unique thing to be thinking about tonight when you guys go into your couple section is that your specific definition of your family and what a family is completely unique to you and to you and to you and so on. So when you get married, you need to make sure that both of your definitions can kind of become cohesive and they can work together. And Dad talked about this earlier, but it's really having the understanding of when I grew up, these things were really, really good, and these things were not so good. And for you, these things were really good, and those things, you don't ever want to see or talk about again. And it's taking the good things and realizing that moving forward into your future that you can create any type of family that you want, and you can create your own definition of what a family is. And I think that's really, really important, because sometimes when we have come from a really, really challenging home life, we kind of think that that's all there is, because that's what we grew up with. So that was normal. If mom and dad were abusive emotionally, physically, sexually, or relatives or your siblings were, things like that, where things really, really affected you in a really harmful way, that's kind of what your definition is. And so it's important to be talking about, again, what you would like your family to look like. Okay? So we're just going to talk for a few minutes about some of these key points. And the first thing is that every family has its own unique theater of dysfunction. Dad kind of came up with this, but basically what this is saying is that all families have their own different strengths and different weaknesses. And again, it's really, again, thinking about what you guys want as far as to have as strengths within your family when you make it. There's no perfect family. As perfect as I think my dad is, or he actually thinks of me, we didn't have a perfect family. We all make mistakes. We lose our tempers, we break the rules, we do things that hurt people's feelings within our family. So that's normal.
And the thing is, we tried. My wife and I really tried to, have this perfect environment. I mean, or, a good environment. But, when our kids grow up, they're individuals and they take their own roads. And even though you maybe taught them certain things, you might see them go another direction. And so when Zach says there's no perfect family, it's important for you not to put that kind of, well, if we do this and we do this and we do this, then the kids are going to turn out this way. It doesn't work like that. Trust me.
You can't change your family because you don't choose your family. One of the things that I've learned as, I'm 31 now, and for a long time, the things that really annoyed me about my dad or my mom or my brother or sister, I would try to gently help them change, so to speak. And they with me as well. But as I get older, the more I'm realizing that, we're all human beings. We all have different strengths and weaknesses, and it's really not up to me to try to change them as it is for me to be accepting of who they are. And when I've kind of changed that perspective a little bit, it gets a lot easier to be able to get along with certain situations or certain experiences that you don't like so much.
This one day, I'll never forget, I had a phone call from Zach. And Zach had been kind of in my face over a number of things. And he called and he said, Dad, I've been thinking about things, and I realize I've been very disrespectful to you, and I want to apologize. And I thought that was the most mature, wonderful thing, because there had been times when I felt like I was getting pushed in a direction like, yeah, there's this exercise program called P98 or something like that.
P90X.
P90X. It could have been P90 500. So, all of a sudden he wants me to be 28 years old. He's getting me up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go down there, and I said, Zach, you're going to kill me. And it was like, no, Dad, you can do it. And it's like, oh gosh, and I wanted so badly to not disappoint or make Zach think I was a lazy, but my God, that's a tough program. And I did not finish it.
All right, we're gonna quickly go through this so that you guys can get to your couples time right now. But again, we talked a little bit earlier about values and expectations really come from our family. So our rules, behaviors. For example, growing up, it was disrespectful and wrong. It was a rule not to swear in our house. Okay, so whenever one of us would lose our temper, and if we happened to swear, my mother was typically the one who would be like, "What are you doing?" And she would say Zachary Jordan Lee. Okay, she would use the whole name. So it's those simple types of things that we need to be thinking about that kind of again have shaped us. Did you receive lots of physical touch in your family? Were your parents individuals who gave lots of hugs or kisses? They showed you a lot of emotion in a positive standpoint. Even simple pats on the back for doing something good around the house or getting good grades. Did you receive lots of words of affirmation? Were you told that you were special, unique? Or did you not? And how has that affected your self-esteem today? What was considered normal in your house? What would you like to consider normal in the future?
I was working with a couple just last night, and they are highly educated. I mean, they're professional people, and we were talking about how they did conflict, and he said he's this great big guy and she's this little woman, and he said when she gets mad, she just goes after me. I mean, he's 3 times her. He's 3 of her. And he said, I shut down completely. Then she gets mad at me because I'm not talking, you know? And then we start talking about how they might learn, you know, and we'll be teaching that here, yeah, about how to do conflict constructively. And he, at the end of the session, he looked at me because his wife agreed to do fair fight rules and to learn this technique. And he said, I feel like it's Christmas. He said, I feel like it's Christmas. We're finally going to learn how to talk and not fight.
And that kind of comes to communication patterns. I am very similar to my dad. I'm very extroverted. I like talking to people. If I was here by myself and I just had to meet all of you, I'd have more energy by the end of the night than when I came in, because I just think it's fun. My wife, on the other hand, if she was in that position, she's a little bit more introverted, and she would not appreciate that.
Some of you have come out of, no doubt, families where you've had lots of nurturing, a lot of affirmation, a lot of you can do anything. And some of you have come out of homes, possibly, where you have not had that kind of support or encouragement. And a lot of times growing up, it's not so much what happens to us as what doesn't happen. For example, I had a couple not long ago where his parents never ever came to one of his athletic contests, and he was a very good athlete, got many awards. They just never came. And he just expressed, you know, how hard that was, but now he goes to all of his kids' games. I never saw my mom or dad hug or kiss. I never saw them say I love you. They didn't do that with us children either. There was this, one of the rules was you don't express emotion in my family growing up. And my wife grew up in the opposite kind of a family. That was like the Brady Bunch. When I first met her mother put her arms around me and hugged me and kissed me on the cheek, and I mean, I was like a frozen popsicle. I was, and a red one, you know. I mean, I could not. I didn't know what to do, because my own mom had never done that. And then when they went to bed that night, I slept out on the couch, and here were Wallace and Edie going to their 4 boys sleeping upstairs. Good night, Miles, love you. Good night, Mark, love you. Good night, Dwight, Kyle, love you, love you. Good night, Wallen, love you. And I'm like, wow, I mean, what's that all about? So you can see where, for my wife and I, she was used to a lot of affection. I wasn't, that wasn't modeled for me. Luckily, I'm a fast learner. And, but, so you do come from, and so it's important to talk about how are we going to sow affection in our life, and how do we continue to do it more than for 2 years, and then all of a sudden there's no affection or no words of recognition or appreciation. How are we going to keep, I like what Zach talks about, you got to keep dating your entire life. One of the things that makes me so sad is the Women's Center in Fargo for the YWCA, it's overflowing. And you can go to city or around city, I think the statistic is every 45 seconds a woman is being abused in this country. Now most of us men think, oh, I'd never do that, you know? But a lot of those guys are guys who, you know, they've not learned how to express their feelings, and so it comes out as anger, and sometimes that anger moves into the physical realm.
When we look at the following statistics about victims of sexual abuse, it's a really sad reality within our world today. To think that so many people experience such horrific events in their lives is unconscionable. What we want you to know is that in the 9 years that we've been doing our retreats, we have dealt with dozens of individuals who have experienced sexual abuse, physical abuse, and emotional abuse within their lifetime. And there are 3 points that we want to cover with you if you have ever been the victim of one of the above. Number 1, you're not alone. Number 2, if you haven't told your fiance about your past experiences, you need to do this now. It's vital that your fiance understands your story, your experience, and the fears that you've dealt with. Couples who have one person who is hiding such negative experiences negatively affect their own relationship with their partner. And last but not least, number 3, seek counseling or therapy if this continues to be a struggle for you as an individual or for you as a couple. When you think about your family, and specifically your brothers and sisters, do you have a lot of positive memories and feelings towards them? Or do you have a lot of negative memories and negative feelings towards them? When we think about our families and growing up with our siblings, I think a lot of times we have a lot of mixed emotions about who they are and how we got along with them growing up. One of the things that always comes to mind is bullying, and that might take you off guard, but think about it. Did you know that 1 in 7 kids today in grades K through 12 is bullied? I would bet to say that that statistic is as great or greater within our households that we grew up in. Surviving really becomes one of those integral things that I think of when there's bullying that occurs within the household. Were you ever teased or made to feel inferior to your brothers and sisters? Those types of things can shift your personality so that you really kind of go into a survival mentality. What about not always getting what you wanted or learning to power share, learning to share the spotlight with your brother or sister? And finally, what about encouraging and loving one another? One of the most difficult things growing up with our siblings is simply the fact that sometimes it's really difficult, or it was difficult, to encourage them and to love them. And I always want to remind you that doing those things is a choice. It's so hard when we have had past wrongs and past hurts committed to us by our brothers or sisters. And when you go to your couple time, I want you to talk to your fiance about that. What were those things? How has it affected you to this day? And what are some of the ways that you can make an active choice to love and encourage them once more? The roles of our parents and what they modeled for us growing up have really shaped and formed who you are and the expectations that you have for your marriage. Depending on what you grew up with, both you and your fiance have different definitions of what a family is. So when you're thinking about raising your kids, working outside of the home, or not working outside of the home, possibly being a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad, those can be major contributors to whether or not you and your fiance or your soon-to-be wife or husband are going to be happy or not. And that's why you really have to get on the same page for having a clear understanding of what is important to you and what's not important to you. If you both have different viewpoints and different perspectives about how you want your family to look like, this is the time to sit down and talk about those things. And you might need to make some compromises. So when you go to your couple time, realize this. It might not happen in this very moment where you're going to be able to figure out everything. But make sure that this is the starting point to having some open dialogue about what you feel is fair or unfair for your future family and the future responsibilities that you're both going to partake in. The ways of dealing with money were modeled to us by our parents. Did your parents make a budget on a monthly basis or an annual basis so that they could set goals and reach those goals? Within your house, did you have one parent who took the primary responsibility of handling the finances for your family? Or did your parents share in that responsibility? What about if they were good or bad at money management? What are some of the things that you really took away from watching your parents handle and deal money? What do they do? How do they act with it? What are the things that they did with it? And what did you take away? Specifically, what do you want to do with money right now, and what do you want to do in the future with it? What was the best lesson that your parents ever taught you about money? Did they teach you to be financially responsible, or do you find yourself being more financially irresponsible in your life? And when you look at your future spouse, what are some of the things that you see in them? Do you find that they're more of savers or more of a spender? And what do you find with yourself? Do you find that you prefer saving and having a large bank account, or do you prefer going shopping and looking at life more of living in the moment and being a little bit more spontaneous with the way that you spend? It's important to be talking about this and thinking about this, because when you go into your couple time, we really want you to be focusing on not only those different attributes to your guys' personalities, but we want you to be really laying it out there and talking about your future expectations about what you want your money to go to and how you want to be spending it as a couple in the future. Because there's no easier way to cause separation, frustration, and disappointment in a relationship if you're not on the same page with your spouse about the way that you're spending and saving. So make sure that you take extra time in this section when you go to your couple time to make sure that you're both on the same page and you're really able to have a continuing dialogue about what you want together.